Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, USA Global TV and Radio viewers and listeners. And I am Mariska du Preez with today's Talking Heads. I'm very happy to be here as we are continuing on our journey for discovering ourselves and finding out who really am I. So, in the past 3 episodes, we discovered a little bit more about ourselves and how we are made up, understanding that our community and our family and, of course, a whole bunch of stuff that we have ourselves make up each and every one of us to be a unique human being. Then we went and we dug a little bit deeper into our ocean to see what is in the depths of ourselves and discover more around our personality. And last time around, we looked at how we sabotage ourselves, because don't know about you guys, but I know every now and again I put barriers up all over the place and it became chaos from time to time. So with all of that in mind, today we are going to have a little bit of a look around our values, what exactly our values are, how they work, and, so to speak, our own value proposition. Now, I know that this can sometimes be one of those murky sort of subjects because, well, businesses throw around the whole thing about values a lot, and everybody has their own idea and opinion on them. So let's dive into that a little bit deeper so we can see how exactly it works for us and, of course, how it links up with some of the other things that we have covered already. So without further ado, let's jump into our slides. So this would be then lesson number 4. And first off, it would be wise for us to understand what exactly is the definition of a value. So according to the Oxford Dictionary, values are principles or standards of behavior. One's judgment of what is important in life. Now, this I almost want to underline, underscore, make bold. What is important in life for each and every one of us, right? So it's the thing that we find important, not the thing my friends find important or my family find important or my boss find important, but the things I myself find important. So thinking about those things, that's really what we want to dig into a little bit more today. Now, when we think about values, what exactly is the value of values? What's going on with this thing? Now, with values, when we think about them, businesses try to use them and they will say this is their values, and then when we look at what they do, it's quite different. Sometimes people do the same thing. Now, really, the value of values for us is to utilize it in a couple of different ways. So, first off, it's a great anchor. So, what it does is it really centers us to understand this is the thing that I stand for, this is the place that I pivot around. It also helps us with guidance. So, for instance, say we want to start our work journey, or we might want to look at something different that we want to be doing, or we might want to look for that environment in which, for a working environment, we will thrive. Our values, we can use them as guidance, right? To really understand, is this a place where I will feel like I can bring my whole self to what I do and really pour myself into this because it's aligned with me. So we use it as a guidance system. And that's one of the reasons why we have the little compass on the side, because it shows us our north, right? Then the next one, thinking about our previous lesson on us sabotaging ourselves so brilliantly, our values also help us to move into a more sage part of ourselves. Because when we are behaving and acting from our values, we know that we are in alignment, and we know that we do things from our higher perspective. And when we do that, we actually move into an area where we can thrive as an individual and also bring that to our larger community. And then also it gives us clarity. So the way that values give us clarity is it helps us to really identify the things that, per definition, is important to us, right? So we don't go into murky waters and try and delve into stuff that really we don't find that important or that we don't care that much about. So it really makes it easy for us to clarify what to say yes to and what to say no to, because we know exactly where we are aligned with our values and where we might go totally off track. So now, understanding the value of values, what we're going to do today is I have 3 fun ways for us to explore our values a little bit more. And you can use all 3 of them. You can use the one that suits you best, or maybe even combine all 3 of them and use bits and pieces and see what comes out. So the first one, right, you will see that there is a bright sun at the very top for us to help define our values. So what's this little sun about? The little sun is about understanding I am happiest, so I'm feeling sunny, I feel like the sun is shining on me and others. I am happiest when. So think of all the times in your life when you could really say, I'm happy. I was happy when this thing happened. I was in this space. I was going through a certain experience. Whatever the case might be for I am happiest when. It might be things that we do, activities, when we are in flow, maybe during some of our hobbies that we practice, or people that we are around, certain groups of people maybe that we are around. So really think about I am happiest when, whatever happens, and list those things. Then next, we look at our little trophy cup. So when do I feel like a winner? I am most proud when. So thinking about times and occasions throughout my life when I really felt proud. So not necessarily when I was trying to achieve a specific thing, but when I was really proud this thing either happened or a way I behaved or for circumstances that turned out a certain way, whatever the case might be for the thing I'm proud of. So for some people, they're really proud of their children. For some people, they are really proud of achieving a specific academic status or marks. So think about those occasions in your life when you were really, really proud. Your most proud things that happened in your life. And then the last one is I am most fulfilled and satisfied when. So here it's really, and the reason why I have little Garfield there is when I think about a cat having had some cream. They are the happiest animal on the planet, right? So when do we feel like we are the most fulfilled and the most satisfied? Areas in our life and times when this was the case for us, and again, listing those. Then, once we have our little list, what we want to be doing is we want to look for patterns in our list. So is there specific environments or people or groups of people or occasions that really stands out in all three of these areas? And group those ones together, right? Then once you have them grouped, you have a look at each group and ask yourself what is important, what's most important, because remember, our value is the things that's most important for us in life. So what's most important about that group? And try and pinpoint it. I mean, if we have it in the ballpark, we know when it resonates. We know when we've found that right word or phrase that really resonates with us. So looking at your groupings, what is that thing that's most important to you about that specific group? And then we can distill that into one or two words and have our group. So normally we will find that we will have between 1 and maximum about 5 things that would come out through this process. Now, one of the other elements to take into consideration with values that might help us also to identify our values a little bit more is our iceberg. Now, we have heard about this concept of the iceberg in various forms, and here it comes up again because it is just one of those things that is so super useful. So with the iceberg, we see a small little piece at the top, and normally there's a huge chunk of ice at the bottom. So when we think about the Titanic, tragic as it was, they only saw the small little piece at the top and they never saw the big piece that they would bump into at the bottom. Now, when we think about values, it sort of shows up like this. We have our behaviors at the top, right? Those things that other people can see and they can experience of us. And our values, that core piece of us, is the thing that's below the water. It's not necessarily always pinpoint perfect to see that in our behaviors. It does come up. We can see some of it, but we don't see exactly what the thing is that is important. that only each and every individual know for themselves. So taking this concept of the iceberg and thinking about our behaviors and our values brings us into our next exercise. So, our values uncovered. We want to uncover them a little bit more. So, thinking about our values, as I mentioned earlier on, sometimes we have more aspirations that we put down. We say, this is a value. I aspire to be doing this. I want it to be one of my values, and I put it down. And then when I do things, I don't always follow that. So what I want us to do is think about, to what do I aspire, right? Because when I aspire to something, it is important to me. It might not be as important, it might not be the most important, but it has some importance. So thinking about to what do I aspire? Then what is my family values versus my own values? So remember when we started this discussion, it was around looking at how we are made up of our different environments, so our community, our family, and we as individuals in the center. So thinking about that, what's values that I can see in my family, right? As a family group, what sort of values come up? And what's my own values? Are they linked? Are they not linked? How do they look like? And what about this is important to me, right? Looking at it as an individual for you yourself. What's important about these values? It might be that there is some of the family values that is also your own values. It might be that there's some of the family values that's definitely not your values. So understanding what the importance is of these different elements in there. Then, for the rest of our iceberg, we look at that top piece, which is our behaviors. So, behaviors I exhibit. What exactly shows up at the top layer above the waterline? So, when I am happy, how do I show up? What is it that you are doing when you are happy? And how does that show up for other people? How can they actually see this? Then, when we get upset or we feel that we're not heard, there's a very high likelihood in those occasions that there's a value in there that's been violated. So what I want us to look at is think about when you get upset or don't feel heard, what value do you perceive of being violated, right? Which value did the person step on? Because there's most probably some arrows pointing in that direction to say, hey, this is a value and I'm not liking it when it's being stepped on. So that's another thing that comes up in our behaviors. Then, of course, with our behaviors, as with when we looked at the value piece, what behaviors are the community, the family, and individual driven for me? So thinking about our community, what sort of behaviors is acceptable and good within our community? The same for our family, the same for me as an individual, and seeing how those behaviors also drive how I come across in certain ways. So this is very important to also see how the behaviors and the values are linked with one another. Because sometimes we have a value for something, and it might be that the behavior is something we learned within our family or in our community as an acceptable behavior, but it is actually clashing with our value. So taking into consideration those things, it also helps us to understand what other little ice cubes might be floating around our own iceberg. So our iceberg has this guiding values at the bottom, but the ice cubes that's all around might be making the water a little bit murky and confusing for some people. And that's where this one comes in. And then, of course, going back again to that importance, right? And that's why I wanted to underline and bold that one, is what are important about each of these for us as individuals. Really understanding that. So going through this, we can see how our iceberg is now constructed. We have the behaviors and we have the values. And with our behaviors, we can see how that points to the value that is at the bottom of the waterline. Then our very last one is a little test that we can do. And this one, we look at virtues. So the VIA Institute, that also does positive psychology, has a little test that we do, and they found that for human beings on the planet Earth, we all have 24 in total virtues, right? So everybody has them, and we all mix and match them as it suits us. So we will all have the 24, but our top ones will definitely be different. And the way that we order our top ones are also very different and very unique to each one of us. So when we go and we take this little test, we find our top values or our top virtues. So what we want to be doing so we can distill the virtues into values is first we do the test and we find our top 5. Now, once you have your top 5, what you do next is go back to that very important importance question, right? So what is important about that virtue for you? So looking at your top 5 virtues. So say, for instance, we'll take the very top one next to wisdom. So that's the categories: wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. So that's the different categories that they categorized it in. And if we take the top one there, it says creativity. Now, for one person, the thing most important about creativity might be stuff is new, right? So they like newness, they like exploring, they like to take different things and see what they can build from it. So they enjoy that newness. For another person, creativity might look quite different. So for them, creativity is maybe in interactions with other people, finding different ways of incorporating different ideas into one, and then creating in such a way. So this also depends on what other virtues we have paired with that one. So it can show up in a variety of different ways for each one of us, and really understanding what we find as important about that virtue and looking at our top 5. So it might also be that in general, normally, they sort of talk to one another. So you will find that they might have a slight overlap, or they might be really, really ingrained into how the one and the other speaks to one another in the way that it is specific to you. So this is the third way of finding your values. So having these 3 different sort of tests or ways of exploring our values, we can now really find out what it is that we value and what is important to us in life. And now it's not only a word that we say, we really resonate with it, right? We don't want to be like some organizations where they have a list of values that they put on the wall and they put in all their documents, but you never really see them do anything with it because it's not who and what they are. Now, our values, the ones that we say, may or may not be congruent with the things that we do. Now, the thing with a value is we have it whether we have articulated it correctly or not. That part of it doesn't really matter. There would still be an underlying value for us. So if we haven't quite articulated it perfectly yet, it is fine. We can go through all these different ways of delving a little bit deeper and clarifying it for ourselves. And the clearer we become about what the thing is that we value, and as I said, normally 1, maximum 5. So if you come up with a list of 10 or 20, see how you can reduce it and what sort of makes sense that it sort of fits in with the other one. You will always find that there's one that's more important than another. So that would sort of help you to narrow down exactly which values are at the very, very core of your iceberg. And that brings us to the end of our lesson for today. If you have any questions around your values, or you would like to find out more, or maybe get in touch for a one-on-one coaching session, please do get in contact. And you can do this via email. You can email me at mariska@journey2discover.com, or alternatively, you can connect with me via LinkedIn. Write me a little message stating that you saw me on USA Global TV and Radio, and I would love to start our conversation. And that is the end of our lesson for today. I hope you enjoyed that and enjoy discovering and uncovering your values. Until next time, bye.